Come on, TV, give me some of that sweet, sweet pep.
Dashing and daring, courageous and caring.
Yes!
That's not possible.
I've seen that guy somewhere. On TV.
Hello Marvel Legends and welcome to another episode of Displaying Model Behavior, and today we are talking about Pizza Spider-Man, my favorite type of Marvel Legend, the Pizza Spider-Man mold. A figure that has just about been one of the most iconic Marvel Legends designs I think we've ever really had. I mean, this guy has stood the test of time, and I dare say this is the best representation of a character as far as their physique and figure is concerned that Hasbro have put out. We just recently got the retro one, but you know what? Just between us, I think he's a little big. I think he's a little bulky. And I will fight you if you say that the new retro Spider-Man is superior to this. Maybe the articulation is. Maybe you like the torso swivel. I got no problem with that. But if you're telling me that chunky, big, bulky guy is a better representation of young Peter Parker here, I will take you to town, all right? I'll take you to Chinatown. I like my Spider-Man to be like lithe, athletic, that sort of Olympic swimmer type look. So you can imagine this kind of person doing all the gymnastics and the crazy sort of somersaults around New York City. This is my Spidey. And also Spider-Man should always be kind of an underdog, so he shouldn't be too oversized. Pizza Spider-Man, nailed that. But Hasbro also realized they nailed it, so they used this again and again and again and again and again. But you know what? I'm not mad because it's a great buck for a great figure, and let's face it, Spider-Man has so many different costumes and alternate versions and variants. But which one is best? Or more fun, which one's the worst? And which are the ones that are kind of in the creamy middle? That's what I want to know. Well, let's find out as we rank the Pizza Spider-Man. And I gotta say, spoiler warning, this guy's gonna be tough to beat. He's gonna be real tough to beat. Because not only did we have this basic design, but he came with the other head as well. And an alternate head will always give you more bang for your buck. And the fact it wasn't just like a generic sort of unmasked head, but they thought, no, let's do something fun with it. So they have the mask pulled up with the smile, and you got the pizza accessory, plus all the different hands that come with him. Hasbro really, really set the bar for what to expect from a Spider-Man figure. Now with these lists, you gotta start somewhere. So there is the worst Pizza Spider-Man, and it is, for me, for this guy over here, the House of M Spider-Man. But come on, Hasbro. House of M? Really? Who asked for this? Who wanted it? It's not like you're doing a big House of M line. There are 4 House of M figures that came out way back in the Toy Biz days. No one asked for a House of M Spider-Man, but we got one anyway. Why? Because he's a cheap, easy repaint. This is, it's a repaint. Most of them are repaints. I'm not going to get at you for being a repaint, but first of all, it's the laziest repaint. This was the quintessential, we don't know, how are we going to fill out the rest of this wave? Just repaint Pizza Spider-Man. Okay, we'll throw in all the extras. No, don't throw in the extras. No, that'll cost 0.01 of a cent. Let's just give him one pair of hands, no changeable head. Oh, come on, we got to throw something in. Oh, okay, give him a little stringy web line thing. Wow. And then this is more of a complaint about the character design from the comics as well. He's got all this blank, empty spider web space on his chest. Something missing? Can you see anything that should maybe be here that's not? What's all this blank, empty, negative space here? Why is there no spider symbol here? This it's conspicuous by its absence. It's just such a plain, empty space. It's how did the comic book artist not think, something's missing? What could it possibly be? It's right there. It's like having Batman without his bat symbol or Superman without his S, which stands for hope. It's just this big empty negative space and with no accessories and no real call for the figure, this definitely ranks as the lowest member of the Pizza Spider-Man roster. Spider-Man, let's get this one out of the way. We have the Dr. Octopus Peter Parker Superior Spider-Man. One of my most disappointing Marvel legends because it should have been so much more. This is based on concept art, which is nothing actually like the final costume. He should have a backpack on the back where 4 extra limbs sprout out from. He should have exposed web shooters on his wrists. There's so much more that should be happening with this figure, but isn't. Add to the fact that he only has a couple of web shooting hands and a weird thumbs up hand that doesn't really make much sense. It's a very disappointing figure. What he does have going for him, at least, is that he has quite nice sort of raised goggle type lenses, which does make a bit of a difference, but on the whole, things like that, it's not enough to save this figure. And if we're talking peg warmers and shelf fillers and extra figures to just fill out the wave, we have Symbiote Spider-Man. Oh boy, you know, I was talking about the Red Hulk a while ago and saying, I'm blowing some dust off, and I was saying like, man, someone really ran out of ideas. Boom! Ran out of ideas. It's like that meme of, you know, hey, can I copy your homework? Yeah, but just change it enough so they can't tell you did so. With Symbiote Spider-Man. Definitely not the black costume Spider-Man, no. So unneeded, or who asked for this? This was a design that appeared for like one issue. Literally an issue where he took the Venom symbiote back to fight the Red Goblin. And all they did was they just made the design a little bit more angular and gave him these weird, silly little eyes that come off the face, which is kind of fun. I kind of like that. It's weird and stupid and pointless, but what the heck? At least it's something different, but it's not enough to make this figure all that worthwhile. No one asked for this. If you were going to do a repainted Pizza Spider-Man, there are so many other kind of variants that would have been more fun to have done, rather than just, like, it feels like they put a filter on the black costume, and it's like, ooh, now it looks angular. Okay, so he has like the slightly clawed hands, and he has the clawed sort of feet, so it's comic accurate. I'll give it that, but it was just kind of pointless. I don't think anyone was clamoring for a symbiote Spider-Man because we already had the iconic black costume Spider-Man. So if nothing else, this guy was surplus to requirements. Coming up next, we have a figure that's a little bit hard for me to judge fairly. We have Spider-Man 2099. Now, why is it difficult to judge fairly? Because this is, I'll be honest, a knockoff, all right? So I know that this is not the legit Pizza Spider-Man, but the knockoffs are actually pretty good. Like, if you had told me it was legit, I wouldn't have looked at it and gone like, oh no, it's clearly a knockoff, because there's no obvious evidence to tell you that. So I'm going to assume that this is exactly as it would be like if I did purchase it, maybe with slightly looser joints. Still with the Pizza Spider-Man mold, but now we've got the slightly more claw type hands. He's got the little web cape on the back, and of course, obviously, the Delos Dels Muerte style design that Spider-Man 2099 had. But the thing is, with this character, they've done a decent job. Like, the 2099 design is a cool design, and they've captured that, especially with the more metallic paint, which really sets it off. The problem, though, I feel, is that the design, the actual skull design on the chest, that should be slightly raised. That should be sculpted. There should be more to it than that. This was just a repaint, and it kind of shows. I think that actually the detailing on the face is slightly sculpted. Yes, the face is raised, so that's actually really nice. But if they had gone that extra mile with the skull design on the chest, that would have counted for so much more. But then they let themselves down with the rest of the design, which is just painted on there. And then he's got the little spikes on the forearms, which are okay, but it's not enough to really set it apart as a particularly decent figure. Up next, we have the repaints, but with a little something extra. So we have the all-new, all-different Spider-Man. Now look, yes, absolutely, this is a repaint, but first of all, the biggest thing is that he comes with an unmasked Peter head. Oh my goodness, that was so long in coming and overdue, because Peter Parker is as big a character as Spider-Man himself. So we needed an unmasked Peter representation, and we finally got him with this figure. crazy that it's in a like Walgreens or Walmart, Target, whatever it is. Like, it's an exclusive 2-pack, so it's not even readily available for, you know, everyone. So this was kind of hard to come by. But we've got some brighter blue colors, and of course the thing that really sets this design apart from the regular is he's got the glowing green eyes and the glowing spider symbol as well. So it makes a difference, but it's not a huge departure. He had this look for quite a long time, so it's fair enough that they actually take the time to immortalize it in a Marvel Legends figure. It didn't stick around for that long, but it was worth having. If you're gonna be a nerd like me and organize all your Spider-Man figures chronologically, then you kind of need that all new, all different look to be represented. Now we're going to go to our most recent Pizza Spider-Man, and that is the Negative Zone Spidey. Just when you thought it was safe to start buying Spider-Man figures again on a new buck, they go back to the pizza mold. But I'm not mad because it's such a good mold. Now look, this figure is the most kind of quintessential repaint because it's exactly like the Pizza Spider-Man, even with the pizza. The only difference is, oh wait, actually no, they don't have the unmasked head. Lose points for that. Well, that's why you're in the lower half, guy. That would have been fun to have a negative Peter Parker face, but the black and white would have looked really weird. But I'm digressing. This look has been used a couple of times. The first time I remember seeing it was when Spidey was in the Negative Zone, which is why I associate it with that. But also he had this look when he was kind of like influenced by Mr. Negative's powers, and you see this, you know, negative sort of version. This figure, yeah, it's real basic with the repaint, but just the stark contrast of the black and white just looks really pretty. I love the white circles around the eyes. It's a cool looking costume. It's totally surplus to requirements. Absolutely no one was asking for this. I'm going to wait now to see everyone in my comments go, as a matter of fact, I was demanding Hasbro make this figure. But at the same time, do we need it? No, not in the slightest. There are so many other repaints they could have done with the Pizza Spider-Man, like Flipside 2099. Come on, my Flipside 2099 fans, we need to get together and demand this. Surely I'm not alone here. But it's definitely one of those figures that's a nice to have, but definitely not a need to have. For this next figure, we're going to go way off the reservation, so to speak, with Superior Venom. Still based on the Pizza Spider-Man buck, but taking huge liberties with everything else. But what fun liberties they are. I mean, we've got the main selling point, of course, is the spider tendrils coming off of his back. That looks really cool. That's a nice addition, which we originally had with the Lasher. Why am I not including Lasher? Because he's not a Spider-Man variant. Because, of course, there are other figures that use the Pizza Spider-Man mold, but I'm just going for Peter Parker representations here. And technically it's Otto Octavius's mind, but it's Peter Parker's body, so this guy gets included. And now look, he's got these tendrils, they're great, but the only problem I have with the figure really is that he's a little undersized for the character, but it's still a fun design. He's got the more clawed hands, he's got the clawed kind of feet, and it just kind of works, but it's not really iconic for me because, you know, the face by its very design, echoing the Humberto Ramos kind of artwork, it's a very kind of scratchy kind of design in the face. It's not that sort of aesthetically pleasing, so it's a fun figure, but it doesn't really do that much for me. Now we're moving on into the figures that I genuinely love, and we have, hey, big time badass Spider-Man. And yeah, okay, throw my hands up in the air like I just don't care. It's a repaint. It's a straight up repaint, but it's such a pretty repaint. Neon green. Neon green just looks cool. Neon green on a plain black background. It's just vibrant. Let's do it. It pops off the shelf and it looks terrific. So this is, I think, a perfect way of showing off the Pizza Spider-Man mold when the light catches it, with the different angles and poses you can put him in as well, thanks to the articulation that you've got with this figure. It's really great. And also this design didn't last for very long in the comics. It didn't stick around for a long time, but when it was here, it was like, oh man, that's a really pretty suit. This was when we were all caught up in that Tron Legacy hype or whatever the new Tron movie was, and everything was getting Troned, and people were actually, when they first saw this costume, they were like, oh no, this is just a Tron tie, and it's like, he is actually wearing it for a proper story. The only sort of thing where I kind of stroke my beard at it is like, This was a really advanced suit. There's no reason why he wouldn't have kept it, or when Kane Parker took it, he'd be like, well, I'm going to make another one because this thing's awesome. He was like, nah, just going to go back to the cloth. Now, speaking of big time, we've got a big time favorite of mine. Of course, it is the Ben Reilly Scarlet Spider, the first Scarlet Spider. And this figure, I saw him on the shelf and I was like, whoa, they got a Ben Reilly figure? I wasn't following Marvel Legends at the time. And everything that they've done here is such a wonderful sort of next step on. Escalation is the word I was looking for. An escalation of the Pizza Spider-Man figure. You've got the basic mold, and then they throw on all the extras that come with Ben Reilly. Obviously the hoodie, which is wonderfully realized with the little tassels that actually are not just, you know, sculpted onto the chest, but actually come off as separate sort of pieces. That's really nice. Then I love the ankle bracelets. The ankle bracelets look great, where he's got his extra pockets for his stingers and his impact webbing. The belt as well, which is a separate piece around his waist, so you can even maneuver that around. It's really, really nice. The extra cartridges, the detailing, the web shooters on the outside around his wrists. So many nice features on this figure. The only thing I would say is, like, maybe the red looks a little flat, maybe the black outline around his eyes are a bit too thick. If only someone would fix that. Just wait. Up next, we have one of the most iconic looks of Peter Parker. Of course, it is the black symbiote costume. Now, this deserves a little design award just for how beautifully sleek and minimalist it is, but it's so effective and striking. I don't know who originally designed this in the comics. I'm sure someone can help me out. But of course, it was originally the Spider-Woman kind of design that was then tweaked to make it this symbiote one. And it's just a gorgeous, beautiful looking design. The Pizza Spider-Man buck really kind of shows it off nicely with all the black and the basic white. You can see the really slim, slender kind of look. He looks like a lean kind of Spider-Man. It's really great. And the eyes, the huge, big white eyes, so effective, I think. So expressive, lots of character in there. I'm a big, big fan of this figure, and he definitely deserves to go very high in the rankings. Now we're going to really mix things up. Get a little punk rock, if you will, because it is Spider-Punk. And this figure had so much put onto it that it took me a while to be like, is this a Pizza Spider-Man buck? I'm pretty sure it is. I mean, stop me if I'm wrong. But he's got the slim, slender physique. I'm sure you can kind of tell by the waist. It's that skinny waist where you think like, no, that must be Pizza Spider-Man. But that's almost where the resemblances end, because there is so much more going on with this figure, which I love. Of course, the main point is the beautiful denim jacket he's got over there and the detailing that's gone into it with the spikes and the buttons and the pins. He's got the wonderful Spider-Man punk rock logo on the back there as well. Then, of course, the sort of quintessential part of Punk Spider-Man or Spider-Punk, you've got the punk rock spikes on top of his mask there. Just so much fun has gone into making this figure. With the guitar as well, you can see I've swapped over his plain white guitar with the more colorful Deadpool guitar. It's just got everything that they looked at the figure in the comics and went, yeah, you know what? Let's not half-ass this. Let's actually do it. I mean, we got the buck anyway, so it's not that much work. But they did. They really went for it. Instead of just a web shooting hand, they kind of tucked the thumb in so he has the proper punk rock devil horns going on there. And then even casting and sculpting the little guitar pick there. So much effort has gone into this, and it just sets it apart beautifully. Then the kicks on his feet as well, or whatever these kinds of shoes are, which granted in my own head canon, I'm like, well, how does he stick to walls if he's wearing shoes? But I will forgive that because it's just a really fun look. I really dig this character. Now we got the big guns. It is time for the retro carded Scarlet Spider. Oh, what was that? Hasbro listening with their Cody Rhodes hand to the ear? You want a slightly more vibrant looking costume without the black around the eyes? Boom! You're looking for this? Now look, I know that there's also a carded Pizza Spider-Man, and it's like, oh, you know, you should really include that as well because they are slightly different. Yeah, all right, nerds. I don't know the difference. I'm sure they are. I'm sure one blue is more bluey than the other blue. I don't know. Get out of here. But not only did they give us that, they gave us the beautiful blonde Ben Reilly head, which was just, we didn't ask for it. But once we got it, we were like, oh, yes, please. Thank you, sir. May I have another? Can I also have another Peter Parker head? Not with bruises. You gone ruined it. But I'm digressing. This figure, I love it. Oh, it's almost a bit of a shame because I love it so much that it kind of makes me dislike the other Scarlet Spider because I'm like, you look a bit orangey and a bit flat. Whereas this guy is so bright and colorful and dynamic. Also, a big difference for me, just being a Scarlet Spider nerd, is the fact that he doesn't have the black outline around his lenses, which I always thought stood out as being like not quite right with the original Scarlet Spider. People can argue like, no, he does have black around the lenses in the comic books, but I say thee nay. I think those black lines are just literally the line that has been drawn to differentiate his eye, and then the eye's colored in white. I don't think there's meant to be a black rim around there. So having it straight, just white on red, perfect. Dare I say it? Mwah! Chef's kiss. They've slightly reworked the web shooters on his wrists as well. Rather than having the kind of flat design, they're the more sort of circular tube kind of look, which I didn't initially notice, but now that I'm seeing it, that in itself also works really well because it kind of covers up the join between his hands and his wrists. So that's a little touch that I think I didn't even notice, but makes an aesthetic difference. I love this guy. I love this figure. He ranks very high. Now, of course, I'm sure this whole time you're wondering, well, where does the original Pizza Spider-Man rank? Well, I'll tell you, right here, baby, number 2 in the ranking. So way, way up there. I mean, of course, this is the character that the mold was designed to depict, and it depicts him beautifully. So, of course, he's got the other head with the mask coming up over the mouth, which is such a nice little extra touch. It's nice that someone thought, hey, let's actually do something a little bit different. Let's make it a little bit quirky, and it works. It's a really fun way of displaying him if you want to go that route. Now, the thing is, this was the basis for everything else. So, of course, he's going to rank highly. But there's not too much to say about him besides that because it's Spider-Man. He's beautifully depicted. They nailed it. They done good with the huge 90s Mark Bagley style eyes and the beautiful clean lines on the webbing. Just this set the standard, and it's just a great figure. Now, of course, with any ranking, when it comes to the top spot, there can be only one. Or can there? Yep, I'm being kind of funny with it. I'm not being funny. It is what it is. Because, first of all, it is the Ben Reilly Spider-Man. Would it have been anything else? Of course. Is it biased? Yeah, it's my channel. So Ben Reilly does get the top spot. But even from an objective opinion, I think there's a lot you've got to love about this design. Yes, okay, straight up. It's just a repaint. The only difference is, of course, he has web shooters on the outside of his wrists. That's the only real difference between him and the original Pizza Spider-Man. But then, of course, with my little tinkering and kit bashing, he's got the blonde Ben Reilly head from the carded Scarlet Spider, which works so well. It's beautiful on this figure because also it recreates one of my favorite comic book covers by Dan Jurgens as well. That's why I've got him holding his mask and kind of looking up. He's getting snapped by a photographer, and it's a great shot that you can recreate. And I love the costume. It's such a nice take on the original Spider-Man. It's tweaking it without completely throwing it out the window and doing something different. I love the half boots, the gloves with just a couple of fingers with the webbing, and the huge big spider on the chest and back. Such a great design, really iconic. Bam! But is that enough to warrant the number 1 spot? I hear you cry. Like, really, Dave? Really? Even with your Clone Saga obsession, you're gonna give us Ben Reilly just because he's a repaint and there's not much else to it? Ha ha! We also have the Spider Carnage, which is an optional extra you can make with this figure. And I love that. I love it when they throw in different hands or heads, which actually allow you to make not a completely different character, but a very, very, very different version. This is not just an open hand and a closed fist hand. This is an entire story arc that's being depicted in this character, which of course means that Hasbro get to double dip, but I'm not mad about it when they make such a cool figure. Also, this Carnage, this buck for the Carnage, I think works really well. The Carnage we have on the, Bucky Cap mold. I adore that. It's like a great Mark Bagley Carnage, but I always saw Carnage as more of like a skinny little evil imp type character, and that's where the smaller, more slender Pizza Spider-Man buck I think really works. Then you've got the radioactive special claws and just the great mean Carnage head. It's such an awesome addition to have to what is already a fantastic figure. So happy with this as a combination. definitely deserving the #1 spot. And guys, that was my ranking of all the Pizza Spider-Man. Oh, what's that? I forgot the McFarlane Spider-Man? I don't know what you're talking about. Guys, what do you think? Comment below, let me know. What is your favorite iteration of the Pizza Spider-Man buck? And for those of you wondering, the ones on the Spinatron 5000, I had out there purely for aesthetics. Why? Because they're not on the Pizza Spider-Man mold. I thought they were when I originally saw them, like way back when I first got them. I was like, oh, it's a variation. And it's like, oh no, I think it's the Sunfire mold they're on. They're slightly bigger, slightly heftier, which makes sense for those characters. But come on, they're pretty, so they deserve to get showcased on the Spinatron. But are there any other Spider-Man variants that I forgot? Please comment below, let me know. And if you like what you see here and you want to see more, then join the 6-1 Clicks by clicking the like, share, and subscribe buttons. And if you really liked what you see, then you can go over to patreon.com/displayingmodelbehavior, throw a few shekels my way, and keep the lights on in here. And don't go anywhere, because we've got the Data Blast coming up next. All the best things that I found on Instagram, curated for your enjoyment. Check the names of the creators and go give them a follow, because they do fantastic work. And until next time, keep displaying model behavior.